Okay, everybody, check it out. This is an addendum video to a video that I made at this very spot a few days ago, and that video was uploaded to two separate YouTube accounts. Now, when I get done making this video, what I'll do is I'll paste that video's URL link in the description, so you can watch that video, so you can kind of correlate the information exposed in this video to that video, and that way you have a more pictorial understanding of how most of the statements in that video also apply to this one. In fact, the statements I'm going to make in this video, I actually meant to state in the other video as well, but since I didn't, that's why this video can be considered as being an addendum to that video. You definitely want to watch that video, baby cakes. Now, I'm going to fly right into it. First thing, if you go to rewatch this video, I suggest you get a pen and piece of paper out so you can write down my descriptions. Each description of all my videos are a piece of the puzzle. Let me just give you a fast illustration of something so it can kind of be brought more home to you in reference to your understanding. Whenever you buy a picture puzzle, they were extremely famous back in the 70s, and you sit down and you put it together, each little piece of that puzzle eventually then creates the picture. And that way you can kind of see what the picture is all about. All right, hold on a second, because I got a bad gas bubble. Please excuse my language in my descriptions. But so, anyways, so right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay down the foundation, so that when I continue to talk and I get towards the middle of the video, you're going to start seeing why the preliminary statements were made first. And then as I proceed towards between the middle and the end, you're going to have a more great overall understanding concerning the subject matter. Then when you see what this video is about, you can cross-reference into the statements concerning the video I made the other day that I was referring to about a minute ago. So what I'm going to do in laying down this foundation is I'm going to give you an example of something so you can see it with your mind's eye, because this is part of the foundation that you're going to build on. So here we go. Now, let's say you got a guy who works 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, and he's got the weekends off. Okay? Let's also see if this video, once it's completed, and then when I upload it to YouTube, let's see if there's any continuous background noise that is always going on, at least in a good portion of the video, because that's what happened the other day when I made that video here. There was a non-stop sound in the background for the majority of the video. There was, and when I was making that video, I tape recorded all my statements. I haven't had time yet to go back and review that audio file, but what it sounds like in that video is non-stop carts being rolled along. Now, we all know that when we go to a grocery store, you're not going to have the non-stop sound of carts out here. There's no way, because people don't come back to back to the store in a continuous stream. So anyways, let's see if that occurs. So here's an example that here's something that needs to be presented in order to build on these statements, and you can consider it as part of the foundation. Now, so let's say if you got a guy that works 9 to 5, and he's got the weekends off. And so let's say on Thursday he starts to notice that his dryer's acting up. And he's got the type of job where he definitely have to be able to wash his clothes for work. And obviously we all want to wash our clothes anyways. So, and then when you wash them, you got to dry them. So let's say on Thursday he starts to notice that his dryer's acting up again. Then on Friday evening when he gets home from work, he puts in a load of laundry in, and then when he goes to put it in the dryer, halfway through the drying, the dryer breaks down. And so he says, okay, well, I'll spend Saturday morning, maybe Friday night, Saturday morning trying to fix it. So come Saturday afternoon, he realizes that it's completely broken. There's nothing he can do to fix it. So then what he does is he'll go on the internet. What he can do is he'll go on the internet, and he'll look at several of the appliance stores that are within his immediate geographical location concerning where he lives. And then he'll go on their websites, and he'll look at what type of dryers they sell. He'll look at the cost, he'll look at the warranties, he'll look at payment plans, and so on. So when he's seeing each picture of each dryer, and he's looking at the adjacent information to it, cost, warranty, monthly payments, and stuff like that, he's taking all that information in, the text information that explains the price, the warranty, and the payment plans, while he's seeing the pictures of each dryer. Just like when you look at this Just like when you look at this grocery store ad, you're seeing that these are costing 99 cents, this costs 179, then that costs 199, and then you make the choices about what you think you can afford and what you like, based on your needs and even your wants. Now, this is something we all do when it comes to the purchase of most things, cars, any type of whatever we might want to buy online, or whatever we might want to research online, so we can then evaluate the variables and attributes pertaining to the item, and then proceed with a resulting decision by comparing cost and anything that might be appealing to the person concerning their needs. Now, the reason why this is being stated is because we as human beings, we have at least two main forms of memory. That's verbal, which is auditorial, and then we have visual. Now, visual memory and memory is a tricky thing because we got residual memory, long-term memory, short-term memory. We got visual memory, we got auditorial memory. And so he does all this surfing on the internet on Saturday afternoon, maybe part of Saturday early evening, and he hasn't made up his mind yet, but he did print out some things from these particular websites, from the appliance stores, and then he went on to, and then after that what he did was he went on to, so he said to himself what he'll do on Sunday is that he'll review again what he had scanned on the internet in order to, so it might assist him in coming to an eventual choice. Then he'll get in his car and he'll go to 2 or 3 of these stores and he'll go inside and he'll look at what's there. He'll talk to the employees concerning the payment plan, the warranty, the cost, if there's any sales or whatever. So after he's left the first store and as he's on his way to the second store, his mind will start rotating that information back from his visual memory based on what he deliberated as a result of his research, excuse me please, on Friday afternoon and Saturday morning. So then when you're thinking about the attributes connected to each dryer, its cost, its payment plans, and its warranty, that's language which you process in the left hemisphere. When you're thinking about these, when you're processing these verbal deliberations, your mind is also spitting back to you flashes of the vivid visual imagery pertaining to that particular item that you're reviewing in your mind. Okay. Now, the reason why this is important concerning this particular exposure is because I wanted to give you an example about how visual memories can play a role in thought composition. How you're composing your thought in order to be able to, the picture of the dryer is related to the item, which is the dryer. That's also related to the thought deliberations, the internal verbal thought deliberations pertaining to what you want from the dryer, what's available, the cost and the warranty and the monthly payments. So as you're processing those verbal thoughts, what the brain is aware that this is related to a reference, the pictorial image of the dryer itself. So as you're composing the verbal thought, deliberating the choices and the attributes of the dryer itself, your mind is also kicking in and can even motivate those verbal thoughts by kicking in that picture of the particular dryer because it's the motive, it's connected to the motive, it's connected to the need of the dryer. Now, I brought this up, and I know this probably sounds very elementary to you. In fact, it is, but it's also sophisticated as well. Because most human beings know that this is what the mind does, but it's not really, it doesn't become aware of this knowledge that the brain does this by and through the educated details of how it's done. The reason why I'm presenting to you is because does it, or you can think about does it, contribute to my follow-up statements. Hold on. Now, so let's now move on to some of the additional descriptions concerning the subject matter of this video. So now I'm segueing into the beginning of the middle of this video. Now, so let's say if you have a gang stalking target who they made homeless, okay, which this crime is doing to thousands of people each year, men, women, and even families, okay, especially women and single women, but they're doing it as well to men and single parent, like men who might be a single father who has a kid. So what these little criminally insane maggots are doing, the ones who host gang stalking at the federal, state, and local level, who are working together as an up and operating nationwide organized crime syndicate in the system at the federal, state, and local level, that's what gang stalking is altogether. So what these little satanic rats will do is when they look at each victim, they select each victim based on original initial motives, and then they can also say to themselves, well, later down the road, well, we can also use this victim for other motives as well. But let's go back and we'll look at why the foundation was made pertaining to this. So let's say if they made a victim homeless. Now every human being on this planet eventually becomes aware that all human beings and all creatures need sleep. This is something that's totally unavoidable, right? So these little satanic rats who host this crime, they know that when they make the victim homeless, whether that victim is aware yet or not that what caused the homelessness is connected to this crime, whether they're even aware of what gang stalking is, they know, the host of this crime, who's managing the creation of the homelessness, the intentional creation of the homelessness of the victim, they know that once they make that victim homeless, they're going to continue the gang stalking crime against the victim. And gang stalking is nothing but a program of applied techniques, methods, tactics in order to achieve criminal motivations. Oh, absolutely. One victim can be picked for 30 different criminal motivations. So, let's say if they make either a man or a woman homeless, one specific target, and that same victim is being remotely targeted with remote neural monitoring. Now, when you research remote neural monitoring on the internet, you're going to be able to see that it's massively widely reported that remote neural monitoring has several features connected to its capabilities. That being, but not limited to, brain mapping, the remote neural monitoring of memories, memory stimulation, thought interruption, and memory blanking. Now, these are just a few of the features of this sadistic, demonic technology. And the perpetrators are using this technology, concerning what's reported, are using this technology so they can remotely, from a distance, monitor the brain neurally. Remote neural monitoring. So, now you got to remember, remote neural monitoring is not just about monitoring the brain. In this criminal expedition, it's about monitoring the brain for unique specific reasons. So when you research how the auditory cortex can be remotely neurally hacked so that they can monitor and see what the victim is processing auditorily, including subvocal speech, so they can also monitor what's being processed in the visual cortex. What the victim is seeing with their eyes gets sent to the retina, the optical nerve, to the visual cortex. So everything the victim sees in the visual cortex, they can see on their monitor. They can also send visual images, still frame images, and visual streams, videos, to the visual cortex. Now, they can also use additional adjacent technology that will assist in this, like remote neural monitoring lens implants, ear implants for the verbal, the auditory cortex. And so when you research my statements, you'll see truth. That's why you got to patiently, with a mature posture, research each description. Okay? Now, so let's say if they make a person homeless, and this person says to himself, well, I'm all alone as I'm being subjected to this criminal reality, so I need to stay safe. And the victim is already being made mentally aware that they're being targeted by and through a crime that intentionally lets you know, through creative techniques, that you are being targeted. And that's where the stalking comes into play at. The stalking of gang stalking is nothing but illegal GPS tracking. The gang of gang stalking is where they can use anybody and any place against you so that anybody and or place, okay, can apply gang stalking techniques against you. Okay? Now, so in gang stalking crimes, when they make this victim homeless, they know that the victim is going to have to go somewhere, okay, to sleep. And that since this crime is nothing but a massive crime that is perpetrated against the victim and their property on a non-stop basis every day, including everywhere they go, they know that victim is going to eventually say to themselves, I just want to go somewhere to be left alone. The more time I spend alone, the less time I'm harassed. Now, at least when it comes to the community-based gang stalking. So check this out. So they go to a wooded area, and as they're in the wooded area, say if you pick a wooded area that's right off a road. Now, as you're entering that wooded area, you see what's in front of you. Just like you see this water machine is in front of me. So I'm processing that water machine with my retina to my optical nerve to the visual cortex. Then my brain distinguishes it and applies meaning to it concerning what it is. So say if you go into a wooded area that's right off a road. As you're entering that wooded area, the eyes see everything that's in front of it and everywhere you walk to on it. So let's say if you go into the wooded area and you notice that it's nice and pleasant looking, it's nice, the landscape is nice and uniform, undisturbed, pleasant looking to the eye, and no one's there. so you have a personal sense of privacy, safety, and at least the environment looks nice and pleasing to the eye. Just like when you go shopping for a house, you're not going to go into a bad neighborhood and buy a rundown house where the property and the adjacent properties look all messed up and unkept and everything. Well, if you go into a nice neighborhood and you see a nice house and it's a totally nice area, what do you think is more pleasing to the eye? Well, it would be the nice area. We are all aware of this, which is why a lot of times people will get really into making sure that their yard looks nice and so on. So you got to remember, this victim is also experiencing and has already experienced massive crimes and is still experiencing massive crimes through this crime along their routes and where they go. So when the victim says to themselves, because this crime will intentionally push you to the point where the brain starts saying, all I want to do is be left alone, because the brain starts screaming for relief pertaining to what has already happened to them, how they're being intentionally reminded about what's happening to them through many different methods and means, and concerning what the current program is still doing every day. So when the victim enters the wooded area, every single thing that they see in front of them looks nice. It looks uniform. It looks well kept up. Okay, there's no one there. Okay, and so that assures the victim that they're going to have a sense of privacy, and that they're in a place where where people can't come on the property and then harass them and then have a normal apparent excuse concerning why they're there. So the victim has now got a place that they can at least initially use and maybe frequently use, whether it be permanently for a while, or fall back on it as a place to go to once in a while. It doesn't matter. So whenever that victim enters that area and then walks around on that property, what they're seeing gets sent to the monitor of remote neural monitoring. And the satanic horrors, the mass murdering animals who are monitoring the remote neural monitoring, what the victim sees gets propped up, gets sent to their computer, and then they record it. So let's say if you were here with me right now and you start walking towards that, your retina is seeing it, your optical nerve is processing it to the visual cortex. They are monitoring the visual cortex and recording what the victim sees, right? So then let's say if the victim starts utilizing that place for a while, and then all of a sudden they start experiencing mass harassment at that place. Massive propped up, intentional propped up continuous noise harassment at that place by and through car convoys, loud industrial trucks being intentionally propped up around the area, a lot of maybe construction going on around the area that's intentionally propped up, a lot of landscape noise that's in the area. And you should research noise harassment. That's one of the biggest aspects of this crime. So what they're doing is they're engaging in sensory mapping and auditory entrainment pertaining to the noise, and driving the victim crazy by never letting that victim have a minute's peace. And they can also stage assaults, robberies, rapes, and whatever. So the victim starts to feel massively uncomfortable. So the victim might decide to get up and leave. They can also be being hit with electromagnetic weapons, directed energy weapons, and ultrasonic sound bone conduction on a non-stop scale at that place once the victim starts utilizing it. So then the victim is also experiencing all this sound harassment while they're being biologically and neurologically tortured every single day and night while they're there. So the victim's brain is going to start saying, I got to get the fuck out of here. Now you got to remember, when the victim started using this place, for the first initial few days, everything was quiet. Everything was peaceful. The area looked great, very appealing. Okay? So all of that visual imagery, okay, got recorded on their monitor of remote neural monitoring. Okay? So the victim then says, I got to get the hell out of here after they've been there a while and subject to massive crime. So they say, well, I got to move from here. I got to go somewhere else. So then they go somewhere else, and then they start experiencing the same exact identical to a T thing there. So as including community-based harassment connected to the satanic crime. So then, now let's take a look at the memory blanking connected to remote neural monitoring. And that includes also thought interruption connected to remote neural monitoring. So what do we do? Let's say if you have a person that was living in a bad neighborhood, and then the person said, well, I can't take this aggravation anymore. I can't take the high crime rate. I can't take all the social deviants that are in this neighborhood. So I'm going to leave and move out. And then they leave and move out and stay at another place for a year. And then something happens and they got to move out of there. The brain is going to start looking for other places to live. And it might even stimulate those memories of the older neighborhood, because that's where they used to live. So that's kind of like an identifier. So the brain will kick back in some of those memories. Where am I going to go? And so on. Well, now, let's go back to how remote neural monitoring has stored the visual imagery of how nice that place looked when the victim first started using it. Okay? Now, the victim, when they moved, is now put in the same exact identical hostile environment. Torture, nonstop harassment, including through neighbors endlessly. Okay, and propped up people who come on the property are congregating directly around you, who act wild and crazy, who act threatening in order to create a threatening environment, and so on. So and if you're being subjected to massive neurological and biological torture through electromagnetic weapons and direct energy weapons and ultrasonic sound bone conduction, well, you better believe then we're dealing with a victim who's in a traumatized brain state because they're literally being neurologically tortured. Literally. So while they're experiencing this, and then they start to say to themselves, I got to get out of here because I'm not going to survive here if I stay here, they can then engage in what is known as thought interruption, where they're literally stopping and jamming the thought process that the brain would go into and evaluating what is another option. Then as they engage in that thought interruption, research all my descriptions too, remote neural monitoring, as they're engaging in that, they can also simultaneously stimulate those visual memories of how that first place looked appealing to the victim when they first started utilizing it, while simultaneously using what is known as voice to skull with voice morphing, where they can literally copy your voice print, put it in a computer. Voice morphing is shown in the movie Untraceable. It's shown in the movie Terminator 1 and 2. Okay? And so in Terminator 1 and 2, in the first one, voice morphing is used by the Terminator who's pretending to be Sarah Connor's mother. In the second one, it's used in order to trick John Connor into believing that he's talking to his foster mother. Okay? So and the movie Untraceable is where the killer of the movie has hacked into an FBI agent's phone and then calls the phone and pretends to be a woman he was dating, because everything he speaks into his computer, the computer microphone that's attached to his face, where the voice morphing software is in, so he calls the FBI agent through the computer while he's got the microphone on his mouth. And so when he calls the FBI agent and he's talking to him, everything he states is coming out in that woman's voice that he was dating. So he's pretending to be the woman that he's calling. He's pretending to be the woman that dated the FBI agent as he's talking to the FBI agent. This was done in order to seduce him into making a choice to meet her, which was actually the criminal who was pretending to be her, so that they could meet, so he could kidnap him and then kill him. So research extensively voice to skull with voice morphing. So in gang assault and crimes. So if they can, while the victim went to another place and then starts experiencing horrific levels of torture, nonstop harassment through people, nonstop harassment through neighbors, they can then start flashing those visual images of the previous place while they're intentionally perpetrating the electronic thought interruption, because they don't want the victim to be able to remember that they were tortured at that last spot, right? So what they're going to do is they're going to thought interruption, where they're literally preventing the victim from gaining a neurological access to the problems that the victim endured at that spot before they moved. Then while they're engaging in that, they then simultaneously flash images into the victim's visual cortex of how nice that place looked, because they know that the victim is starting to evaluate through subvocal speech monitoring that the victim has decided to move the current spot and try to find a place that's appealing. So then what they'll do is engage in thought interruption connected to remote neural monitoring, while simultaneously flashing those visual images back into the victim's visual cortex, while simultaneously using V2K with voice morphing to make that victim believe that they're having their own thought, hey, I can just go back to that place, it's nice, and I can just put my little camping stove on the ground, because they also took they also recorded the visual imagery of that victim's camping stove when the victim used that camping stove at that place when they were utilizing it. This is literally the intrinsic nature of this crime. So what do we do when we make a choice? We evaluate, just like the guy was evaluating the dryers. Which dryer do I want? What are the attributes connected to it that are appealing and will fit my needs? Well, this is what gang stalking does. It puts you in a circumstance and then causes you to run from place to place to place to avoid the harassment and the torture. Then they can neurally manipulate your thinking process by flashing. Remember, visual images can be part of a thought composition. Where am I going to go? Well, let's evaluate the places that I've used before. But they know that they tortured that victim in that place before, so they engage in thought interruptions so that victim has no memory recall of the torture, while they're simultaneously flashing visual imagery back into the visual cortex while they're simultaneously using voices coupled with voice morphing. So they see the nice images of how the place used to look. They see the nice images, oh, I can go back, and while they're using V2K, which can be composed of, oh, I can go back here and set up my camping stove and everything will look nice, because they're literally flashing those images that they recorded when the victim was at that place before the massive torture started. So they're not going to have no memory recall the torture while they're presenting to the victim that this is an appealing option that they can go to escape the current torture. So this is all being intentionally processed in a loop in the victim's mind while they're in a brain state of torture because they're being tortured at the current spot. So they know what's happening to the victim at the current spot because they're the ones who are responsible for it. So they know the brain is going to run because they know all victims run when they're being hit with that type of technology. Absolutely. Directed energy weapons, electromagnetic weapons, and ultrasonic sound bone conduction while being harassed by and through physical people that they prop up around the area and or periodically come on the property and stage events, intimidating events while neighbors are being used to scream abuse. So the victim is not in the best mind frame. I mean, you go into an immediate dissociated state when your brain is being traumatized as it's being cooked through electromagnetic weapons. So while the brain is all in this bad physical and neurological state, they then manipulate the choices of the victim because they know they're creating the need to leave. So they want to steer the victim back to the original spot by blanking their memory of the trauma they endured there, by engaging in thought interruption through this remote tech, while simultaneously flashing those images of how nice the place looked when the victim initially started using that prior place, while simultaneously using voices go with voice morphing. Oh, I can just go back there and everything will be all right for a while because the brain is believing it because it's seeing these images of how nice it was there, okay, while blocking the real memories of the torture there. This is literally how bad remote neural monitoring is and its influencing, combined with the additional integrated tech of V2K with voice morphing. So this is how and then they can also stimulate what is known as the get up and go response, which is whenever, say if you're sitting at a bus stop, right? And so you're sitting at a bus stop, and then all of a sudden it's quiet, and then all of a sudden you hear a car crash right behind you, or somebody scream really loud. What your brain is going to recognize that because your right brain evaluates what's going on in your surrounding for threat assessment. It's a hardwired innate function. So say if you're sitting at a bus stop and all of a sudden you hear this big gigantic crash right behind you, your brain's going to process the sound of that. It's going to instantly recognize it, and then it's going to motivate and nudge you into left brain deliberations. This is dangerous, I got to get up. And so then it instructs the get up and go response, which a lot of people find that to be an unconscious, innate, automated response. If you hear something loud and you're sitting down and your brain is perceiving something to be dangerous going on immediately around you, all of a sudden, your brain is going to nudge the left brain to get up. And then the get up and go response is dedicated to that electrophysiological signal that is sent to the legs and the feet to get up. Okay? So while they're influencing the victim to go back to the other spot, they can also stimulate the get up and go response. So they are assuring that the victim gets up, packs up everything, and goes back to that spot. Now, why do they want them back at that spot? Is it because they already have neighbors is it because that spot is easier to target the victim in specific ways and in continued ways with the same tech? They can even keep that victim there by interrupting their thought processes while they're there experiencing the torture so that the victim cannot even have the thought, I gotta get up and leave here again. This is fucking how bad this tech is. Now, when you go to YouTube and Google, and YouTube and you type in John Hall satellite terrorism and you listen to enough of his videos, you're gonna see that they literally neurally controlled his ex-girlfriend, his ex-fiance, to get up while she was in her home, to get her to get up and influence her through voices called voice morphing, to influence her to go eat the food and drink the water or the specific type of like juice drinks that she regularly drank that were in her refrigerator that had been drugged with the date rape drug. It took effect. They were already watching her in her house from outside, which you'll be able to determine how they do that as you continue to research remote neural monitoring and all the other additional surveillance tech that these satanic bitches use. And so what they did was they drugged her food. When she came home, they nearly controlled her to go drink it because that's a memory anchor. If your brain's saying I'm hungry, if your brain's saying I'm thirsty, they can make you think that you're thirsty and hungry by literally using voices called with voice morphing and saying, oh, I want some water. Okay? The victim gets up, drinks the water that's been drugged, she drinks it, they know she's drinking it, so they know how long it's going to take for that drug to take effect. They then come in the house and rape the shit out of her continually, okay, and videotape all the rapes and sell it to a pornography group. This is your United States government. So if you want to see that news broadcast pertaining to that, go to YouTube and type in Stockton, San Antonio. Then go to YouTube search box and type in John Hall Satellite Terrorism, and when you watch enough of his videos, you're going to literally hear him tell this. Okay, there's hundreds of videos showing him explain that story. Oh, absolutely. So, all you got to do is take each description. Literally, take each description. Remember, when the guy went to go look at the first dryer, his brain was reevaluating the attributes connected to the dryer. Would those attributes meet his needs? So he's evaluating in order to make then a resulting conclusion. When they torture you from one spot to another spot and then keep that same shit going on at the second spot, they can then neurally influence you to go back to the first spot by blanking your memory, by thought interruption connected to remote neural monitoring, while using the visual imagery that they're sending back to the visual cortex to make you think, okay, I believe the voices go with voice morphing. I can go back there and there's nothing wrong because you're seeing the visual imagery of how nice it looks. You got to remember, remote neural monitoring gains a neurological access through the unconscious mind. So you're not able to determine that consciously that you have been neurally infiltrated. Okay? Welcome to the mass murdering, human trafficking, raping, gang raping, murdering whores that are using this tech. Welcome to how easy it is to neurally hack someone in order to neurally manipulate them, in order to take them to a second, third, and fourth place where they can be robbed, raped, murdered, tortured, and the whole 9 yards. I made this video to inform, to expose truth. So, what victim do you think I could be referring to if I'm referring to anyone specifically? Okay? You should also know remote neural monitoring eye lens implants can assist in sending this visual imagery to the visual cortex. Because remote neural monitoring biofilm eye lens implants are nothing but, a camera which can receive photos and visual streams, visual streams. What gets seen on the remote neural monitoring eye lens implants goes to the retina, to the optical nerve, to the visual cortex, in order to make you think you're having a thought, or that what you see is part of the composition of a thought concerning deliberations. So you can then take that deliberation and make a conclusion that you then act on. Everybody have a great day. I made this video to inform, to expose truth. Research this description, cross-reference the material that comes up, and I think you will start to see truth. Have a good day, everybody.